Hei kaikille, mä oon Katja Puolakka, Upledger ja Instituut Finlandin maajohtaja. Ja mulla on tänään haastateltavana Erin Riley Australiasta. Erin on meidän yksi kansainvälisistä opettajista ja hän on opettanut paljon suomea, ollut Suomessa sekä sitten nyt pandemian aikaan niin tehtiin paljon opetuksia myös niin, että hän oli Australiassa ja opiskelijoiden kanssa sitten luokkatilassa. Mutta tänä vuonna me saadaan Erin takaisin tänne Suomeen huhtikuussa, niin ajateltiin, että pääsette tutustumaan häneen nyt ensin näin haastattelun kautta. So Erin, thank you for the interview. I know it's quite late in Australia in Adelaide at the moment.
It is. No worries. Nice to chat with you, Katja.
So you are coming to Helsinki soon. And,
I am, and I can't wait. I love Helsinki, and I'm looking forward to my favourite places.
Yay. Before we go to that part that you tell us what the favorite places are, can you tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a physio by original training, and that was kind of an interesting initial step for me, I guess. I came from a really creative background, initially sort of much more arts, language, music oriented, but I also played a lot of sport. So I kind of ended up in this physiotherapy space, and I loved it and found it incredibly frustrating at the same time. And just physiotherapy for me in my training was fairly black and white. And I kept thinking, but people are so different. How am I meant to work in this black and white way? And so I was really fortunate to come to kraniosakraaliterapiaa really early on in my career, actually while I was still studying. And I just felt like I'd come home and I'd felt something in the body that I'd always kind of known about. And so I've gone on to work in kraniosakraaliterapiaa, but also my love is sort of psychology and Jungian work. And so I spend a lot of time in that space. I'm back at university now working towards a psychology PhD and looking at how I can bring all of these pieces and parts of myself together with that.
So back in the day when you did your first CS1, did you start to incorporate the cranial work with your physiotherapy as well, or how did that the first bit of your CST career kind of went?
Yeah, so when I went through, I did cranial 1 and 2 back to back, kind of like a lot of people do when we have international instructors. So I had, I think, 1 day off in between, and man, that was a lot of information to kind of assimilate in a short space of time. But I was lucky, I was working in a physiotherapy clinic that already knew about CST, and so they wanted me to do it with clients straight away. And so in the early stages of my career, I blended kraniosakraaliterapiaa kind of with sports physiotherapy, but over time and quite quickly that actually evolved into working with CST full time.
What was the reason for that?
For evolving into CST?
Yeah.
I think I just love the profound change that can happen in a body with the simplest of listening touch. And it was also a really personal thing. I mean, I had serious migraines for a long time, and the heavy nature of physiotherapy was really breaking my body down. I had really bad migraines on a daily basis. I had back injuries. My hands were kind of giving out. I don't think my body would have held up. And at least here in Australia, we have such burnout in manual therapies with therapist bodies breaking down. So I think it was both of those things for me, finding a career that I felt would give me some longevity in terms of what I could do with my body, but also just finding something that I feel could actually meet the person where they're at and work with the whole person, body, mind, spirit, rather than more of that sort of musculoskeletal focus.
So you mentioned about the feeling of coming home in the CST and CS1. Can you tell a little bit more about that?
So I had this really interesting experience actually before I even took Cranial 1. I was doing some mentorship with a physio who he mentored in muscle energy technique and strain counter strain and some other sort of osteopathic modalities. And I was working with him, and one day he said to me, just go down and hold the ankles and straighten up the feet for me. And then he kind of got distracted talking to the patient, and my hands were just kind of there for a while. And after a while, I started to feel this kind of weird movement in the legs, and I kept on opening my eyes to see, if they were moving, but they weren't. And I was sort of feeling this rhythmical pulse. And the physio, the mentor said, what are you feeling down there? And he was more sort of thinking about, well, like what position is the pelvis in? And I sort of hesitated, but then I said, it might seem really strange, but I feel like the body's moving. And he said, well, show me in what kind of direction. And I showed him this sort of opening and closing movement. And he said, have you taken Cranial 1? I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And he said, I think you're feeling the craniosacral rhythm. And so it was this spontaneous experience of feeling this rhythm in the body. But in that moment, I felt like I was touching something so core to who that person was. And it was that moment that I connected in. I thought, wow, I need to go and find out more about this, because it awoke something in me, I think, as well, being able to be with that person in a different way.
So what's the best part of the craniosacral therapy? I know it's not an easy question, but if there's something that you could mention.
How do I distill that down to a nutshell? I think for me, craniosacral therapy is more than just a set of techniques that we learn to work with people. For me, the most transformative part of craniosacral therapy is the fact that people come to know themselves in a deeper way. When we move into the somato-emotional release realm, I think we really can consider it somato-emotional realization. We realize who we are in a deeper way. And that intersects so deeply with my own personal experience in my life and the work that I do with my inner world and the work that I do in psychosynthesis and my Jungian work, and being able to connect with the depths of ourselves, but also the depths of our patients, I think is such a privilege. And that happens from the moment we go into Cranial 1 and the moment we first start to put our hands on and learn to palpate with this gentle listening touch. And the first time that we feel the cranial rhythm, first time we work with a fascial diaphragm. And I mean, it blows my mind on a daily basis, the work. Sorry, I know that wasn't a short answer for you, Katja, but trying to bring it all into something.
It was perfect. It was perfect. And then, you have been already teaching for years now. So, what got you into teaching? You teach several levels as well.
Yeah, I think probably what got me into teaching initially is that I'm from a family of teachers. My parents are teachers and, other generations before. And so Actually, even before craniosacral therapy, I taught swimming, I taught aquatic therapy, I taught people how to work in the aquatic environment with people with autism, and did a lot of public speaking. So I guess I had that background, and I came into craniosacral therapy and was asked by the Institute whether I would like to become a teacher, and I thought, yeah, great. I think it probably helped that they said, would you like to go to Hong Kong and, you know, start your apprenticeship? I was like, great, you know, my love of teaching and my love of travel in the same place. So that was good. So I think I taught my first Cranial 1 class in, I'm going to say 2012, I think, which makes it, gosh, 10 years. Time's gone quickly. So yeah, I teach Cranial 1 and Cranial 2 and teach SER 1 and teach a lot of clinical applications classes, teach SIR tips and motor emotional release and mastering the inner physician, and also teach a class teaching new teachers how to teach the work as well. So I love being a teacher. I love sharing knowledge. I love seeing the light bulb come on for students, and being able to mentor other people. It just feels like we get to participate in that ripple effect of, if I can help people, help more people, then we can help the world.
In CS1, what do people get out from that class for our basic level, the first one we take?
I honestly say this at every class. I love this class so much. I love this level because it brings so much to it. And I think in Cranial 1, we introduce you to feeling the craniosacral rhythm for the first time. So it's this inherent biorhythm that we have, and that's, you know, similar to our heart rate and breathing, but it's different. It's a rhythm produced by the nervous system. We can feel that throughout the body. And so when we don't feel it, or it's distorted in some way, it lets us know that there are some challenges in that area. And so it helps us to find the core restrictions or the core problems rather than just treating symptoms. And so then primarily in Cranial 1, we teach you how to affect change in the craniosacral system, which is the brain and spinal cord and fluid surrounding the brain, and then cranial bones in the sacrum. So we do some work with fascia, we do some work with the sacrum, and we do a lot of work with the cranial bones. So I've got my little skull here, was just teaching a little earlier. So we work with these cranial bones to free up restrictions. And it's a whole body thing. So by the end of Cranial 1, you'll have this sort of full 10-step protocol that you can use with clients as soon as you walk out of the door at the end of 4 days. And it will give you this really wonderful opportunity to work globally with the body and start to work with more perhaps complex problems, but also to certainly work with people and find the root cause of their problems rather than just working on the area that they've got symptoms.
And a question that I sometimes get when people are contacting and about asking about the training, because there's probably in Australia as well, we have a couple of different schools that teach different type of cranial work. And of course, there's a huge field of different manual therapy techniques.
Yeah.
For you, what makes the Upledger Institute and especially our training? What does it make? Why it's special for you, or how do you usually say why us?
How do I answer that question? Yeah. Well, I think to start with, I mean, Dr. Upledger developed the work, and he developed it out of a deeply research-based paradigm through his work back in the 70s at Michigan State University. And so I think that learning from as close to the source as possible with things is always really great. Any modality that I've learned, I've always tried to get as close to that sort of core founder as I can. The other thing I think, Dr. Upledger, the way he put together the classes and the way he developed the curriculum, we really build the foundation in the structure and function and really understanding what's happening with the anatomy and the physiology. And from that really strong foundation, we're able to move into deeper and deeper realms. And what I've heard a lot from students that perhaps have come from other schools of craniosacral therapy into the Upledger paradigm is they get those structural pieces, but they get them in a way that they understand how that contributes to the big picture. So in Upledger work, while we teach you techniques and we teach you anatomy and physiology, we're not giving you a script of this is how you have to go. We really teach you how to take those techniques but incorporate into the essence of what the paradigm is, which for us is about gently blending and melding with the person and their tissues, using the least amount of pressure necessary to work with that, and listening and following the body. And so I think that does really set Upledger work apart, because as an entire curriculum, your learning is scaffolded really nicely all the way through. I'm biased, of course, because I'm a teacher, but I do really feel that that's true as well.
Well, me too, because I run the institute, but
yeah. Yeah, but I have heard that consistently from a lot of people that have come from other schools.
Yeah, similar for me as well. But for whom, if one thinks if the craniosacral therapy would be something to learn for me, who do you recommend the class to take?
Everyone. Are you talking like what sort of backgrounds people come from for it, or
like if you think like the latest classes that you have taught, that what's the background there, and what is the things that people then, because in the first day we ask what brought you here, what are the most common things that people might say?
Okay, good question. So I just got back from a class late last night actually, so I can think about that. At least here in Australia, and I do find this kind of around the world, we have a lot of physiotherapists, chiropractors, osteopaths, occupational therapists that come, have a lot of remedial massage therapists, a variety of bodywork modalities. And whenever I ask on the first day, what got you here, people say a lot of different things. Sometimes it might be just want some new techniques. I heard this was a good thing to do. Others are, what I hear really often is people say, I want to be the therapist that people go to when the normal or conventional stuff isn't getting them better. I think a lot of people find that they get to a certain place with their patients, with their work, and the patient doesn't get completely better, or things are more complex, and they feel a little like, where do I go from here? And I feel like craniosacral therapy is a really beautiful piece for that kind of thing, where it offers a broader perspective on what's going on. And I think as well, kind of what I was saying earlier about myself and my own body as a therapist, a lot of people come sort of further down the road in their careers and they're looking for something that will give them a little more ease. Craniosacral therapy is very gentle. We don't get kind of sore from pushing. If anything, we get a little sore from sitting for long periods of time maybe, but it's just very different. It's gentle, and I think it does offer therapists something that's a little more comfortable in their body as well.
And then if one decides to take the CS1 class, and another question that I regularly get is that how many classes you need to take? How many classes? Is it one enough? Two or more?
So there is 5 classes in the core curriculum in terms of the receiving the entirety of the paradigm and Dr. Upledger's work. It's Cranial 1, Cranial 2, SCR1, SCR2, and Advanced. There are, Advanced 2 classes. There's a whole lot of kind of sideways classes, special interest in various things. So for me, I think it's so important for people to come into the work and think of it like I have several classes to take to receive the entire paradigm. But what I also think is really wonderful is that the curriculum is set up in such a way as even though you're working towards that, you can still take what you get from Cranial 1 and put it into practice right away and do amazing work for people. So it's not that you have to wait for the whole thing. It's just, I think you'll implement Cranial 1 and you'll do a whole lot of that work with your clients, and you'll get to a natural point where it just feels like, oh, I need the next piece now. And it's good to just think about it in that way.
And when someone decides to take the class, do you have some advice or tips that what should they do before taking the entry-level class or the next one? And what are the tools that kind of supported you to become the therapist that you are nowadays?
Well, I think my number one tip would be go and receive some craniosacral treatment prior to coming to the class, just so that you get an experience of what that is in your body. And we will say that to you at every level of the curriculum. The best way you can become a better therapist is to receive the work yourself and, to really experience that in your own body so that you understand what your clients are going through, but also so that you shift your own things and you're willing to invest in the paradigm in that way. In terms of going into Cranial 1, I think it's really nice to do a little bit of revision on neuroanatomy, the anatomy of the cranium and the central nervous system, because we do have an assumed level of knowledge, I guess, in the class. And so just having a bit of a look at a neuroanatomy textbook or, cranial sort of work, I think is a really nice thing prior to coming into the class. And if you don't have time for any of those things, we give you everything that you need within the 4 days as well. So we really will meet you where you're at and try and find a way to deliver the work and the education to you in a way that, is easy. As you go through, the curriculum, continuing to receive your own treatment, continuing to practice, you need to get your hands on clients. I mean, we don't learn this work or any kind of body work by reading textbooks. We learn it through doing. And so get your hands on and practice, friends, family, anyone that will let you, and getting together with other therapists and advanced therapists to receive feedback. And mentorship, I think, is incredibly important and valuable as you go through as well.
And then before we finish, if we go back to you a little bit, can you tell something about your upcoming week and like what type of clients you nowadays treat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my week has started out actually doing a little teaching online tonight, which is part of how things go. I'll be back into the clinic tomorrow, and I work 4 days at the clinic, and I have a lot of other therapists that work there as well. My client base this week will be, the youngest client I'll treat will be 5 days old. And the oldest client that I treat will be 72 years old. And there's a whole lot in between. So I do a lot of work with children with autism, so around like 5 to 7 years of age. And I also do a lot of somato-emotional release work. So my client base, a lot of them are coming in for trauma work or wanting to work with imagery from kind of a Jungian perspective as well. So my week's always eclectic and the clients vary a whole lot. But I think the important thing to say as well is that I don't just work. I've got to find the balance as well. So my week, I've already been to my own therapy session tonight for dream analysis. I'll go to my weightlifting session tomorrow. I'll spend some time painting and drawing this week as well. So life is full and beautiful.
And balanced, at least it sounds like it.
Well, at least for right now. I'm not always that good at keeping the work-life balance, but this week I am.
And then the last question. So what are the places that you are looking for to come again in Finland? Yeah, I know that you love Finland. So.
I love Finland so much. Well, it's always a joke that every time I teach in a new country, somehow I manage to find espresso and a martini within a couple of hours of landing. So I love a little place called Lavine for coffee, which I'm hoping is still open after the pandemic. I'm not sure. I really love, actually, I visit every time Helsinki Cathedral when I come. I love that. And I'm not sure if it will quite be summer enough or warm enough, but the little markets down by the sea that have the berries, I'm not sure if that will.
Yeah, there might not be berries, but the market is there, and because it will be here almost till mid-May, so we might be lucky.
Yeah,
the weather is really nice, and you will see how we celebrate the 1st of May.
Yeah. And if I'm allowed to say this, I'll be certainly having a martini at Hotel Lilla Roberts, my favourite little place in the design district as well.
Thank you, Erin. It's so nice to have you here again.